and welcome to Letter 4, Part 2. They were talking, "Here is our captain, and he will not allow you to perish on the open sea." That's what they said to this guy who they're trying to get in the boat. On perceiving me, the stranger addressed me in English, although with a foreign accent. "Before I come on board your vessel," he said, will you have the kindness to inform me whither you are bound?" You may conceive my astonishment on hearing such a question addressed to me from a man on the brink of destruction, and to whom I should have supposed that my vessel would have been a resource which he would not have exchanged for the most precious wealth the earth can afford. I replied, however, that we were on a voyage of discovery toward the northern pole. Upon hearing this, he appeared satisfied, and consented to come on board. Good God, Margaret, if you had seen the man who thus capitulated for his safety, your surprise would have been boundless. His limbs were nearly frozen, and his body dreadfully emaciated by fatigue and suffering. I never saw a man in so wretched a condition. We attempted to carry him into the cabin, but as soon as he had quitted the fresh air, he fainted. Ah, shit. He's dead. We accordingly brought him back to the deck and restored him to animation by rubbing him with brandy and forcing him to swallow a small quantity. I guess that works for everybody. As soon as he showed signs of life, we wrapped him in blankets and placed him near the chimney of the kitchen stove. By slow degrees he recovered and ate a little soup, which restored him wonderfully. 2 days passed in this manner before he was able to speak, and I often feared that his suffering had deprived him of his understanding. When he had in some measure recovered, I removed him to my own cabin and attended on him as much as my duty would permit. I never saw a more interesting creature. His eyes have generally an expression of wildness and even madness, but there are moments when, if any one performs an act of kindness towards him or does him the most trifling service, his whole countenance is lighted up, as it were, with a beam of benevolence and sweetness that I never saw equaled. But he is generally melancholy and despairing, and sometimes he gnashes his teeth as if impatient of the weight of woes that oppress him. When my guest was a little recovered, I had great trouble to keep off the men who wished to ask him 1,000 questions, but I would not allow him to be tormented by their idle curiosity. In a state of body and mind whose restoration evidently depended upon entire repose. Once, however, the lieutenant asked why he had come so far upon the ice in so strange a vehicle. His countenance instantly assumed an aspect of the deepest gloom, and he replied, "To seek one who fled from me." "And, did the man whom you pursued travel in the same fashion?" "Yes." "Then I fancy we have seen him. For the day before we picked you up, we saw some dogs drawing a sled with a man in it across the ice." Oh. This aroused the stranger's attention, and he asked a multitude of questions concerning the route which the demon, as he called him, had pursued. Soon after, when he was alone with me, he said, I have doubtless excited your curiosity, as well as that of these good people, but you are too considerate to make inquiries. Certainly, this guy says, I guess. Certainly. It would be very impertinent and inhumane in me to trouble you with any inquisitiveness of mine. You shits. And yet you, this is the other guy. And yet you rescued me from a strange and perilous situation. You have benevolently restored me to life. Soon after this is not a speech. Soon after this, he inquired if I thought that the breaking up of the ice had destroyed the other sled. Soon after got it. I read that wrong. Soon after this, he inquired if I thought that the breaking up of the ice had destroyed the other sled. I replied that I could not answer with any degree of certainty. For the ice had not broken until near midnight, and the traveler might have arrived at such a place of safety before that time. But of this I could not judge. From this time the stranger seemed very eager to be upon deck, to watch for the sledge. Which had... Sledge. The word is sledge. Sledge, which had before appeared, but I have persuaded him to remain in the cabin, for he is far too weak to sustain the rawness of the atmosphere. And I have promised that someone should watch for him, and give him instant notice if any new object should appear in sight. Such is my journal of what relates to this strange occurrence up to the present day. The stranger has gradually improved in health, but is very silent, and appears uneasy when anyone except myself enters his cabin. Yet his manners are so conciliating and gentle, and that the sailors are all interested in him, although they have very little communication with him. For my own part, I begin to love him as a brother, and his constant and deep grief fills me with sympathy and compassion. He must have been a noble creature in his better days, being even now in wreck so attractive and amiable. So remember earlier, he was like, I need a friend, these motherfuckers ain't got shit, but then he's like, I'm not gonna find it out here. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, this guy shows up. That's witchcraft right there. That shit don't happen. You don't make the deals with the devil and be fucking ignorant to it. I said in one of my letters, my dear Margaret, that I should find no friend on the wide ocean. Yet I have found a man who, before his spirit had been broken by misery, I should have been happy to have possessed as the brother of my heart. I shall continue my journal concerning the stranger at intervals, should I have any fresh incidents to record. Very interesting. Very interesting. We're going to take a pause on that break and the pause, and then we're going to break like that ice, and then we're going to fucking continue on reading. Let's get to the next part.